In earlier videos, we learned that Russian treats these and this as very different things, so much so that we have different words for them. Ходить for motion in more than one direction, or for round trips, and идти for motion in one general direction. Both of these are imperfectives. We also saw that Russian equivalents of went make this distinction in the past. We'll use ходить for one or more round trips. Мы часто ходили в Эрмитаж. And the past of the perfective пойти for the sense of setting off someplace on a particular trip. Где Соня? Она пошла в Эрмитаж? Нет, она пошла домой. To talk about going places in the future, let's use these same two verbs and make a similar kind of distinction between round trips and a single trip. Я буду ходить в Эрмитаж каждую неделю. Note that here we're talking about multiple repeated round trips. We're going to go there every week. Unlike in the past, where ходить can also refer to a single round trip, future forms like буду ходить are only used for multiple trips in the future. What about a single trip? Я думаю, что после 6 она пойдет домой. Here we're just referring to a single trip with no thought about whether she'll return or go anyplace else. All we're saying is that she'll set off, she'll head for home after 6. Since пойти is perfective, when we conjugate it, it really does have future meaning. So пойдет here definitely means will go. There is another way to express a single trip in the future, and oddly enough, it's kind of like English usage, which may help some of you. In English, we often use the present tense forms like am going, are going, to talk about a planned trip. For example, tomorrow we're going to the museum. And it's very common to do the same in Russian, using the present tense of the imperfective идти. Завтра мы идем в музей. It's also fine to use пойдем here. The meaning is almost exactly the same. Now let's think, could we use ходим or будем ходить in this sentence? Well, keep in mind that ходить in the present and future refers to repeated round trips, so they really wouldn't make much sense in this context. And there is one last possibility. What about the future of the imperfective идти? Well, a lot of books don't seem to cover it, maybe because it's not as common as the others, but I'll mention it briefly here. As you know, sometimes, depending on the context, the destination may fade in importance. Maybe the main focus will be on the motion itself, and that's when you might see forms like these. I'll put a few examples in context up here, and you can pause the video if you'd like to take a closer look and read the translations. Just note that none of these examples even mentions a destination. In general, then, at the beginning stages, I think you're more likely to get it right if you just use the present tense of идти to talk about your plans, though the perfective future of пойти is also usually fine. Do avoid using буду ходить, etc., unless you're really talking about repeated round trips in the future. Summing up, use пойти to talk about a single trip in the future. And it's also very common to use идти in the present when you're planning on going somewhere. And we can use the future of the imperfective ходить to talk about repeated round trips. And of course, keep in mind that ходить, идти, and пойти are all used for motion without a vehicle or for short distances within a town.